Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward, and grateful to be having another conversation. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. And today I'm drawing our attention to the season of Advent. Advent is right around the corner. And so how are you going to observe this holy season? I have a new book out for the season of Advent called Praying with the Church Through Advent, and lots of other people come out with new books also around this time of year, and I'm happy to share what other people are doing as well. You know, my book, Praying with the Church Through Advent, is about personal reflection on the opening prayer at Mass, on the collect prayer. And so this work that we're going to be speaking about today is called The Joy of Advent. And it is by Rebecca and Stephen Grabill. And they have put together a beautiful resource, especially for families during this holy season that is upcoming. So thank you so much, Rebecca and Stephen, for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Yes,
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the joy of Advent. What is the joy of Advent? Obviously, that's the third Sunday of Advent. We call it Gaudete Sunday. So we rejoice. There's joy in the season of Advent. But how is Advent a season marked by joy?
Well, I'll take this one.
Go ahead.
I'll say, as we know, Advent is, the liturgical color is purple, and it's a season of penitence and reflection, but it's not the same type of penitence and reflection as you would have in Lent. It's a season of expectation. In the early church, from what our research has shown us, is that it was both a season of expecting Christ's birth and also expecting his second coming. So preparing our hearts for that return of Christ, but also expecting with the Virgin this blessed arrival of the joy of all mankind.
Yeah, there's that song, it's like Jesu, joy of man's desiring. And, that's exactly who the prophets were awaiting, the joy of everything that they've longed for. And so, even Jesus, he says this in his teachings, he says, there were generations of people that wanted to see and to hear what you see and hear, but they didn't. And so, how blessed we are. That the Lord has come. And so truly it is a joyful mark, especially. So what motivated the two of you, husband and wife, to put together this little Advent resource?
So many years ago, so we have three older kids and we have three younger kids, sort of batch one and batch two. But for batch one, we realized just how quickly the season of Advent and Christmas comes up on us, and it's so easy to be distracted. And our goal, and Rebecca really took the lead on this, was to sort of figure out a way to keep the focus of the season, like on Jesus and on what was all the preparation. And at that point, we both were raised in evangelical traditions in the Protestant world, and had not yet become Catholic, but we felt like that whole element was missing. There wasn't enough buildup in many ways to Christmas. And so that began part of our journey into the church more than 20 years ago. So, and I'll let Rebecca sort of take it from here, but there was a whole several trial and error sort of points in that in that journey.
Yeah, I mean, truly 20 years ago, I remember distinctly, our oldest was 3 years old, and we were trying to get him, focused, of course, 3 years old, but on a little children's Advent devotional. But what he really wanted was the chocolates in the calendar. He wanted the candy. And, I realized that Advent for me growing up as kind of an evangelical Christian Reformed, it was just chocolates in a calendar, a cardboard calendar. That was the beginning and end of what Advent was. And Christmas was just a single day. And I didn't want our kids to grow up with that same view. Like, we wanted to take full advantage of this whole season to really reflect, to really grow our own faith, but then grow our kids' understanding of the faith so that it would be meaningful to them and it would be something that they'd want to pass on to their own kids. So, I searched for an Advent resource that could be used for the whole family, that could provide something, for my own heart, but then something for the kids at each level where they were at as they grew, because their needs changed. And I couldn't find it. And then as a writer, my only choice then at that point was to do it myself. I mean, that was kind of my only option. So truly, I started assembling it piece by piece, bit by bit, year after year after year, adding to it, going deeper. We found the Jesse tree structure was just perfect for kids because it really provided a visual for them to hold on to make the whole season really memorable. It's interactive. And it's a perfect opportunity to get the entire arc of redemptive history, and to do it every year. So even if you miss it a few days, you're going to get it again.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of evangelicals actually these days are kind of reclaiming Advent, that they realize that something was missing. And one of the big ones, a big name out there is Annie F. Downs, and she is all about, promoting the season of Advent and embracing the season of Advent. So it's interesting, as you share your story about how you were evangelicals, Reformed, converted to Catholicism, and how Advent, began to creep into your, life and was something that you were longing for in this liturgical aspect or what have you. So there is a value in the season of waiting as well. So not only is it a season of joy, but a season of waiting with great expectation and hope as well. So this book then was a series of, it took years then. So kind of your family life. So now that you've put it all together, it's beautifully illustrated too. It's nice hardcover. It's available from Paraclete Press. And as you've put it together and everything like that, have you sat down and used it with your family? Like, was this something, did you do a trial run last year with it? Or have you had the families last year, maybe friends of your household? What's the reception been of people that have actually made use of it?
So that's a great question. And it just released in October. So the book form version of this is its maiden voyage, this Advent. But what we did 3 years ago now, Father Edward, was we started off, it went through various iterations over that 20-year period. It was an ebook at one point. Then it was just other printed pieces. But it was 3 years ago a website, thejoyofadvent.com. And in that, a lot of the structure of the book we began to sort of put out in terms of a daily email. We called it the Advent calendar that would go to people that would sign up for it. So there were YouTube videos and other pieces, but a lot of the content was originally in that form, but then when we put it into the book form, we really tried to put it into a shorter format. We're very deliberate about how much text was there so that families could read this aloud and it wouldn't, a 10 to 20 minute kind of devotional time wouldn't turn into necessarily an hour because it was too much text to read.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would add to that. I mean, that email subscription is still available, but the focus of it now is the stuff you can't really have in a book, like videos, resources, inspiring classical art that goes along with each day. That's, important just to sort of feed other parts of the soul than just the ear that hears the words. Yeah. And so yeah, to answer your question, we have gone through it with our own kids. And what's fun is that last year, even on nights when we would come home exhausted, because when normally we would do our Advent time, it's in the evening after supper, we come home from a church event, we'd be tired, we'd be ready to just get those kids in bed and rest for a little while.
Yeah.
They would say, "No, you can't do that. We haven't done Advent yet. We have to do Advent." So it's not bedtime. And okay, if they're not going to want it to be bedtime.
There's a little bit of stalling there,
but but they truly hungered for the ritual of it. They hungered for the lighting of our Advent wreath, because that's part of it. We'll light that week's candles each night as we do our reading. And that time of togetherness with family. That was so just grounding for them and important for them. And that was exciting for us to see. And that truly, one of our hopes with the book is that other families can experience that together too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things I always talk about, I've done a few different Advent shows throughout the years. I always make the difference. I note the difference between what I call secular Advent, which begins December 1st, 25 days to Christmas. And then we have, religious Advent, which begins on the first Sunday of Advent, could be like November 24th or 28th. It just so happens that in the year of our Lord, 2024, secular Advent and Christian Advent all line up together. So that's nice, but how do you deal with that? So, cause I know one year I did the Jesse tree devotion and hung a Jesse ornament and did my little Advent show. And I had to either rush to get through the whole Jesse tree, or I had to stall or whatever, because of the difference. So that's always the difficulty of writing an Advent thing, I think, is the fact that, the whole world wants us to start Advent on December 1st. That's when you can have your coffee calendar or your beer calendar or your wine calendar or whatever, chocolate, it's incredible the things they come up with. So how do you reconcile the two?
That's a great question. And really and we talked about this with the publisher too, and the editors, you just kind of have to make a decision as to when you're going to start it, and note that when Advent will begin, that it's variable, and which we did in the introductory sections of this book. But we ended up starting on December 1st. A uniqueness of this particular approach is that we also brought the season of Christmas into it too. So it starts on December 1st, but it goes all the way through Epiphany, so that the focus can stay throughout that entire season on expectation, arrival, and then events in Jesus's life that were very significant, along with many, many important feast days that happen through the month of December and into early January.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I liked that. And kind of the model that you went with was, kind of this notion of 12 days, right? That's the whole 12 days of Christmas. But you don't actually do the 12 days of Christmas like the partridge in a pear tree and five golden rings, but you're actually focusing on the liturgical standpoint here. And so going through the Feast of the Holy Innocents, or St. John the Beloved Disciple, or so it's a very nice little touch, if you will, as you go through that. So I guess why continue through January 6th? Of course, we know that we prepare for Christmas, and it's not over. You said that earlier, we celebrate Christmas. It was just one day, but it's really handing over to the fact that there is a season of Christmas, and that we keep celebrating the birth of Jesus for many more days.
Well, and there's a rhythm to the liturgical calendar that helps to orient our lives, that many of us, whether we grew up in that liturgical tradition or not, are not really aware of. And so that sort of the way space and time is organized helps us to sort of orient our minds, our hearts, our souls toward the focus of that season. That's why we didn't capture all of the feast days that are there, because literally every day after December 25th is a feast day. But we wanted to be able to help give people a footprint of what's going on in the life of the church historically, and how that can become part of our worship and our devotion, which actually the thing that we discovered, Father Edward, is that we didn't know this 20 years ago, but what we learned in the process of our conversion is that there's a term for this, and the Catechism uses it toward around paragraph 1600 and something. I forget the exact number, but domestic church. And what we were trying to do, what we were groping toward as evangelicals, was a notion of the domestic church, which is really where faith is inculcated. Because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to provide this sort of a shot, like an antidote into the lives of our children, to begin to orient their minds and hearts and souls toward the Lord, really, and toward the church. So that's really what this celebration of Advent and Christmas was all about. And now Lent and ordinary time, and all of that too. So
Yeah. Well, you have some neat things in here, not only just the fact that you're helping people to have a reflection, so reading the scriptures, having time and song and all of this, but, I think one of the neat things you've done is, for example, on December 8th, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, you have Make Moravian Spritz, which is a Czech spiced cookie fragrant with cinnamon, clove, and ginger. You give a recipe here, put all these things and make it. So so I think that's a neat thing. So why is it that you would make this on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception? And yeah, why is this a special cookie for Christmas or Advent?
Well, that's a very good question. And a lot for the Moravian Spitz, for example, the sort of the story behind that being a traditional cookie for the Immaculate Conception is that, according to tradition, Mary smelled of spices, of just beauty and loveliness. And the spices in these cookies, especially the dough is made 8 days prior, and the spices mingle and grow in intensity over those 8 days. So there's a sense of waiting for the maturity of the beauty of the fragrance. And that beauty is mirrored in the Immaculate Conception, and it's mirrored in the whole season, really. The weight, the growth of mingling spices and beauty, and just those invisible threads of God's purpose that are just all throughout Scripture. And then you've got this delicious cookie to enjoy, which for families, I don't think I ever get complaints about cookies.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
And it's possible, December 8th. I don't know what day of the week it falls on this year. Actually, I do. It falls on a Monday. And
okay.
So maybe your family's not going to make it on Monday night, but maybe they look ahead and maybe on Sunday night they make these cookies and they have them ready, or, somehow over the week in which we celebrate the Immaculate Conception, they'll make these cookies. So that's just one of the very unique things I noticed, right? I saw another one, the Christmas pickle. You have the celebration of St. Lucy's Day. I'm just wondering, is there one of those kind of standout little inserts that you have in here, like the cookie, for example? Is there another one that stands out to you that we should highlight?
Well, I would say the holiday that I grew up with, even being, Reformed Protestant, was St. Nicholas Day. And even though we didn't celebrate St. Nicholas as a saint, we still had the tradition, the cultural tradition, putting our shoes by the door, waiting for them to be filled. And then a tradition that we discovered was adding a letter from St. Nicholas to the kids, which can then become a keepsake because, it shares something praiseworthy about them, something that they can hold on to, and
areas of growth.
Well, areas of growth, but in kind of a positive, spun way.
Right.
Like you're doing well at this, you can do even better. Let's continue with the kindness to your siblings, or let's continue with the hard work in school, that kind of thing. And I don't know, that became just something that had so much potential to encourage, to be something that a child can carry through to the next generation. And those kind words can live in their hearts and grow like the spices, grow petals and flowers and spill out.
Well, and this is where and this is a good example, Father Edward, where the book and the website go together, because printables were created so that a parent doesn't have to like come up with the whole idea of what does a St. Nicholas letter look like. We've created forms that can be printed just at home with whatever printer you have, that they look like stationery that can either be handwritten or you could type a letter to the kids on that. But there's just lots of things that go along with each of these feast days. There are typically printables of some kind that go along with that. And those are all available too for parents. So
Yeah.
meant to be interactive.
So we have the 24 days that lead up to Christmas. We call this Advent, and a little more sometimes. But what do you do on Christmas Day? How do you celebrate Christmas? Of course, Mass. That's the most
Right.
important thing. So whether you go Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, you go to Mass. But what marks Christmas as special? And I think everybody has their experience at Christmas, like, oh, we gather with family, we have a meal, we open presents, we do these things. But how do you make it a little different, I guess, because you're a believer, because you're a Catholic and you're following the joy of Advent to the joy of Christmas?
Absolutely. So we always try to read a relevant passage of scripture and to reflect on that before we open gifts. That's always a little challenging with younger kids because they're overly eager on that. But we spend time talking about what is Christmas and why is this so important? I mean, we've been talking about it in many ways. We've been building up to it for at least 24 days. But when you get to Christmas, it's important to sort of make it explicit and mark the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then to really make the day be about that. And so when we gather for the meal, whether it's with others like family from out of town or friends that we are having over, it's part of the conversation. It's part of what we're doing that entire day. And so we try to keep that as the focus of the rhythm really of the day. So
Well, and we also we try to downplay the sort of the material aspect.
Yeah.
And we do have the gifts. Of course, the kids love that, but we talk about the purpose for the gifts. Like,
yes.
why do we give gifts? And the gratitude for those gifts, but also for the greatest gift. And we like to pull in multimedia, like, there's great videos for all ages out there that show the Christmas story. And that just becomes part of the tradition that the kids look forward to.
Yeah.
When do you put the Christmas tree up? When do you listen to Christmas music? How does that fit into our Advent celebration?
Christmas music starts very early in our household, actually, sometimes even before Halloween.
Yeah, does Christmas music ever need to stop, really?
Well, and the thing about Christmas music is we have, it's all the traditional stuff too. And it's not the Santa Claus and reindeer. I mean, we understand
fun,
all of
but
that. It's fun, but it's more our kids have grown up with the classic Christmas carols. And that's also part of the Joy of Advent book, in that for each of those days, we try to give a little important synopsis of the history behind one of the major carols. And those are spotlighted as well on the website. And so that's just part of that family celebration, because there's an immense richness to those carols as well.
oh yeah, there's whole theology lessons in a song with many of those. And they're just absolutely, they're teaching tools as well as beauty and just food for the soul.
Well, and this goes back to one of the things that went into our research was a French abbot, and I never know how to pronounce his last name, Garangeau or something like that. But his 15-volume work, the liturgical.
Dom Prosper Garangeau, I think.
Garangeau,
Garangeau,
yeah.
yes.
So
Okay.
we actually really we found those on the Wayback Internet, and they were part of the original Google Books, and they're in our collection. We've poured through them. We used that really as a research base for what we were doing in this book. And that I don't know of any other set of books that is as rich. I mean, it's literally the ancient liturgies of the church and how they've changed over time.
Well, that's great, and that's something I love to do. I love to like bring back something that is kind of antiquated. Most people don't know about. People haven't read Dom Prosper Garangeau, but now you've taken aspects and you're kind of reintroducing concepts and things, and that's kind of this is the living age of the church, how the memory of the church is never forgotten, and that it just keeps coming back and back as we return to these sources and such. So what a great gift that you're able to interweave some of that into the joy of Advent. So this is a delightful little resource. I'm for sure gonna let my religious ed coordinator look at this. She really is a big fan of living liturgically. So I know like maybe she'll want to incorporate some of your exercises or something into our RE lessons even, I bet. But you have a lot of resources. You got the book, you have the website, you have videos. So how can everybody get a hold of all of these things that you have?
Well, the website, joyofadvent.com, has links to the book. The book has in the introduction a QR code that will take you straight to the website.
There it is. Okay.
And truly, the email list, just put your email in, and the daily devotion or the daily resource emails, like kind of digital Advent calendar, will come straight to your inbox. There, it can be used by, say, singles, individuals on its own, but it's not going to have as much depth and richness as if you use it with the book.
Right.
But it can also be used with the family, because then like the videos, there's a video for each carol for each day in that email. And those have been curated. Like I have gone and watched hundreds of hours of Christmas videos of carols. And we've worked to really choose ones that celebrate the diversity of styles and cultures.
From the global church, really.
Yeah. Yep. And there are some that just still, every time I watch them, they bring tears because they're just gorgeous. And and that's part of the email. And that is just put your email address in, and there it is.
Yeah. Totally
That's
free
great.
subscription. Yep.
Well, wonderful. Well, head on over Paraclete Press. You can get The Joy of Advent, pick it up at your local Catholic bookstore or wherever you buy books, and then sign up for the email list that'll go along with this. So there's lots of ways that people can really dive deeper into the season of Advent as families or individuals or what have you. So, well, this has been delightful. I'm glad that to make your acquaintance, to learn a bit more about this great project that you've been doing, and to be able to share it with so many others. So thank you so much, Rebecca and Stephen.
Thank you,
Thank
Father
you.
Edward. We appreciate your time today and for your listeners. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you have a blessed Advent and a Merry Christmas soon.
And
You
likewise
too.
to you. God bless.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.